Hey, Phil, there's an article here about a guy who says he can deep freeze stuff and make it perform better.
Paul, I'll be right back. Cryogenics is the science of low-temperature phenomena. Now, one application you're probably familiar with is people who have their bodies frozen after they've passed away in the hopes of being brought back to life in the future. But cryogenics also applies to the freezing of objects to make them more durable and, in some cases, even better. At minus 300 degrees Fahrenheit, all living things would die. But these inanimate objects thrive. Here in Decatur, Illinois, a company that calls itself, appropriately enough, 300 Below, has discovered that cryogenics improves all kinds of things. Things like this, and this, and even this. They've discovered that by freezing objects to 300 degrees below zero, it makes metals and plastics a lot stronger and more durable.
This is a 114-inch Harley-Davidson racing motor. We've cryogenically treated the parts on it because we found that it has enhanced the life of it a lot. Last year we set the mile-an-hour record at 160.22 miles an hour, and those numbers make it the quickest and the fastest gasoline-burning Harley in the world.
What kind of stuff are you putting in here on a regular basis?
Well, today we've got go-kart racing engines, automotive engine blocks.
Oh, I see a little Briggs and Stratton box over there.
Briggs and Stratton.
The idea here is to reorganize the complex molecular structure of non-living objects, the same way you keep ice cream solid by tossing it in the freezer. Only these refrigerators, called cryoprocessors, are filled with liquid nitrogen, which gets cold enough to densify the chemical makeup of whatever goes in.
If an untreated piece of material were represented by this is a very loose grain structure and kind of craggly. And what happens in abrasive wear is it causes it to wear out and fall apart.
And it makes a very untidy mess.
That's right. But after it's gone through the process, it's denser, more coherent structure.
Right.
And net abrasive resistance is increased, and so it lasts longer.
Here's what happens inside the processor. Molecules, whether in metal, plastic, or anywhere else, are in a state of constant motion. Imagine, if you will, people moving around a crowded shopping mall. People move around at random, and there are gaps between them. The gaps in the crowd would be weaknesses in a metal structure. When frozen as far down as 300 below, molecular motion slows down to a crawl, almost a standstill, as if the people all huddled into one mass. And the very gradual thawing of an object allows the molecules to uniformly disperse, as if the huddled crowd in the mall took one step apart, one at a time, and the end result is a molecular structure that is equidistant, therefore considerably stronger.
We have found, depending upon the steel we use for each knife, between a 200% and 400% increase in edge taking ability and edge holding ability.
Before Pete made his fortune in freezing, he was broke and out in the cold himself. He stumbled on an article online about the freezing process and decided to develop a computer program to regulate the temperature more precisely. He now freezes 500,000 pounds of material every year.
We've married the computer to it. It's a Pentium processor that's accurate to 1/10 of 1 degree. What happens is we now can program it and just push one button and walk away. If you were to drop this in liquid nitrogen, it would thermal shock it and do exactly the opposite of what we do. We stress relieve it, and so it has to go down at less than 1 degree per minute. It runs about 24 hours for a cycle. We place a part in the freezer, send it out the following day to a customer.
Engines, knives, and guns are one thing, and Pete even throws in the odd pair of socks. But how about freezing brass instruments?
They just froze mine yesterday, and they got it out of the deep freeze last night, and the slide's much smoother, much easier to operate, and this valve works a lot quicker and smoother also. It's a big improvement.
The next step for Pete is to add vibrations and an electromagnetic field around the freezers, which he hopes will improve the material's strength by a further 200 to 500%. Imagine the implications for the aircraft industry, commercial construction, or my 65 Rambler. But for now, all this talk of a tougher world is a lot of cold air. Will all your horns be cryoed?
Yes, definitely.
Yeah?
I think so.
I might have to get a horn and have it cryoed, just so I can learn to play one.
We'd like to watch.
Pete says it cost $89 to freeze the Harley engine, and a trumpet freezes for about $75.
Now, along with all the hardware that he freezes, we're told that Pete will sometimes throw in a pair of pantyhose for some friends. Female, we assume.
Sure.
And they tell him that a pair of nylons that would normally only last a few weeks can go up to 6 months without a run.
Something else they freeze regularly are these disposable Gillette Good News razors. They handed me one on the way out the door. 2 months ago, I am still using this razor for close, comfortable shaves.
Very smooth.
Yeah.